10 mythical creatures that actually existed. Myths and legends really do meet reality. These creatures that you imagined were fictional are actually real. Creepy or cute, you'd better look over your shoulder because some of them still exist today. Number 10. Cyclops. Often described as an enormous creature with one giant eye in the middle of its face.
Hey, that's me.
The Cyclops was considered a savage giant. The remains of the cousin of a giant elephant were discovered in the Greek Isles. This pachyderm skeleton has an enormous hole right in the middle of its head. Of course, we know that this is where the trunk would have been. But if this skeleton would have been found hundreds of years ago, it's understandable that people might have made up stories about a giant one-eyed creature.
You're telling tall tales.
Number 9. Dragons. We know about the Komodo dragon, but its significantly larger relative, the Megalania, was originally found in Australia. It has been estimated to grow as long as 26 feet.
That's like 9 miles.
It may have weighed over 2 tons.
That's like 5 pounds.
It's really no wonder these guys were deathly feared and had stories created about them. Its poisonous venom causes victims to bleed to death. So maybe it's not a fire breather per se, but it's still not a creature you want to bump into in a dark alley.
Maybe I do.
Number 8. Dire wolf. Stronger than just a typical wolf, the dire wolf has gotten a lot of attention recently for its appearance in Game of Thrones. The real version of these creatures would have been larger than the wolves we know of today, with greater strength and sharper teeth.
Yowie!
They eventually died out as the megafauna went extinct and they were too slow to hunt smaller prey. Sounds like a dire situation for those poor little dire wolves. Number 7. Berserkers. Appearing in Norse poems and feared in their day, these unruly warriors stirred up a frenzy by allegedly performing feats of superhuman strength
What?
while in a trance during which they could not feel any pain.
How's this possible?
Their gang was known for fighting battles in a fury that was uncontrollable, and the fact that they often wore bear or wolf pelts added to their intimidating features.
You're creeping me out.
Although Vikings often believed that there was sorcery involved, there are some experts who believe that the crazed state of mind of the berserkers was most likely induced by mind-altering drugs.
Whoa, man.
Number 6. Moby Dick. Inspired by a real-life white sperm whale, Moby Dick tells of an enormous creature who originated near the island of Mocha.
Can I get a half-calf double whip?
Captain Ahab was also inspired by an actual man who is known as Captain Pollard. Although his life was not nearly as dramatic as Ahab's, he was the captain of a ship that sunk during a storm.
Oh my!
Moby Dick's author, Herman Melville, wove his own real-life whaling experiences with other contemporary accounts to create his own adventure. But the great white whale, it's real.
Wow!
Number 5. Mermaids. The smaller cousin of the manatee, the dugong, may have been spotted by Christopher Columbus when he insisted he had seen mermaids. Unlike the mythical creatures which are famed to be beautiful,
Gorgeous.
Columbus implied that the mermaids he had seen were not exactly as attractive as he might have expected. He said that their faces had some masculine traits. Considering the dugongs do have whiskers, it could be an honest mistake.
Hey, what's your name? You're ugly.
Number 4. Unicorns. A mythical creature dating back thousands of years, the unicorn has much legend behind it, including magical powers and the ability to fly.
Take me with you.
But having one horn is the most prevalent description of this creature. Back in the Victorian era, when explorers visited Africa, they came across the okapi, a relative of the giraffe. The male okapi actually has 2 horns, but when viewed from the side, it looks very much like one horn, leading the Victorian explorers to believe that they had finally found the unicorn. The shyness of the animals made it evasive, perpetuating the myth until it was dispelled in the early 1900s.
Bummer.
Looking like a mix between a zebra, a horse, and a giraffe, the okapi is an extremely unique animal in its own right, one horn or 2. Number 3. Chupacabra. Chupacabra, sometimes called the goat sucker, is not the human-formed bloodthirsty vampire creature who is rumored to be able to fly.
No.
However, in certain parts of Latin America, farmers have found goats with their blood sucked out of them through a series of small puncture wounds.
Ew.
A relatively new myth, only dating back to 1995, the first sightings took place in Puerto Rico. Some of the sightings have resulted in the rather anticlimactic realization that it was simply a coyote with a nasty case of mange.
Let me brush you.
Number 2. Bigfoot. Otherwise known as Gigantopithecus, this extremely large mammal was an ape that roamed in Asia up to 300,000 years ago.
That's like next week.
Measuring at heights around 10 feet tall and weighing up to half a ton.
Fat Daddy!
The Gigantopithecus may have been a very large distant relative of the orangutan. Although most sightings of Bigfoot-like creatures come from North America, that's a pretty short walk from Asia for this enormous creature. Who knows? Maybe their descendants are still alive today.
I know.
Number 1. The Kraken. Legend insists that the Kraken lurks in the deepest parts of the sea, waiting for, well, we aren't sure what.
He's probably waiting for a hug.
But there is some speculation that the rumor of a Kraken originated from sailors off the coasts of Norway and Greenland, who likely encountered a giant squid. Elusive as it is, and rarely photographed, the giant squid is measured up to 43 feet long, and it's estimated that it weighs up to 1 ton.
Have a salad!
With enormous tentacles and enormous eyes,
You're pretty.
this giant creature would not be one to mess with, real or fictional.
I can take him.